All right. So Tucker Carlson was covering this whole controversy between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and man, he nailed it. You know, it's quite astonishing. Every once in a while, Tucker Carlson will actually say something intelligent, which is hard to beat after he called the metric system an anti-American conspiracy and pronounced kilograms as kilograms. So it's quite astonishing. Let's just watch the clip and then we'll discuss.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The Democratic Party has long been a collection of deeply unhappy interest groups that secretly hate each other. But for the last 3 years, it's been fairly simple to keep that fractious coalition together. You just focus on Donald Trump. Despising Trump, jumping up and down about how mean and vulgar and immoral Trump is the one thing that pretty much every Democrat can agree on. It makes them feel virtuous. So Nancy Pelosi was hoping it would last forever. But alas, election season intruded, and Democrats now have just a few months to choose their party's nominee, their standard bearer. And that means that for the first time in a long time, they have no choice but to focus on each other. Imagine the most miserable people you know stuck together in an elevator for eternity. That's what it's like. Naturally, CNN is right in the middle of it. The channel's shadowy political activist president, Jeffrey Zucker, has joined forces with Elizabeth Warren in her campaign to crush their common enemy, Bernie Sanders. Just before Tuesday night's Democratic debate, Warren used CNN to attack Sanders as a sexist, not sexy, but sexist, for saying a woman could not be elected president. Sanders denied saying it. After the debate, Warren marched over to Sanders and barked at him. Presumably at Warren's request, CNN later released that tape. Watch how it went, including a special guest appearance by Tom Steyer, who suddenly looks tiny and afraid.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You called me, you told me. All right, let's not do it now.
I don't want to get in the middle of it. I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good. Okay.
I don't want to get in the middle of it. I just want to say hi, Bernie. So Elizabeth Warren is not someone you'd want to have dinner with. That much is entirely clear. Tell her you're busy if she ever calls. But what else does that video prove? Well, absolutely nothing. Not one thing. We're in the very same place we were at the beginning of the week, with an aging, unprovable allegation thrown onto the field in desperation by a fading presidential candidate who seems more unlikable by the day. It would get nowhere in court. But over at CNN, where being a high school student from Kentucky is considered grounds for character assassination, it's enough to show conclusively that Bernie Sanders hates women. The wrong tape from our feminist outrage file. In fact, the real thing is even more embarrassing. Watch.
It was so real, the moment. I mean, her, however you want to describe it, her frustration, her anger, her desire to make this point to Bernie Sanders was crystal clear.
So you can clearly understand her fury at that. And again, it's one of those moments you don't see very often in politics where she felt very frustrated, use whatever word you want, and she just went over to him and told him what she was thinking.
I agree with Hillary. It was for real. She was pissed off.
People I've heard all day are saying, well, she knew she was mic'd. She did this on purpose. That, to me, did not look like it on purpose. It looked like she was kind of seething through that part of the debate. Who do we believe? Like, I believe Elizabeth Warren. She is feeling under the gun, where she's feeling judged as a woman. And I think that there's an insensitivity around, like, her frustration on that.
Yeah, it was totally authentic. This time, CNN tells us, this time Elizabeth Warren was being 100% completely real. Not like that time she lied about her race, or the time she lied about her job history, or the time she lied about her plan to finance universal health care without a middle-class tax hike. No. This time, for sure, no question at all, Elizabeth Warren is telling the whole truth and nothing but, and you'd have to be some kind of misogynist to doubt her. That's what they told us all night on CNN. Now, why did they tell us that? Why lie to us? Simple. The Democratic National Committee is worried about Bernie Sanders. All those attacks on Wall Street offend donors. So Jeff Zucker, a Democratic partisan who has said repeatedly he plans to run for office once he's finished destroying CNN, jumped in. He was happy to help. Zucker unleashed his army of paid robots to stop the Bernie menace before voters could elect him. So that's what you're watching. The media working, as always, as handmaidens to the ruling class. And not just on CNN. The LA Times praised Warren for refusing to shake Sanders' hand. They called her rudeness, quote, a masterclass in handling sexism. Okay. But is any of this true? Is it real? I mean, Sanders is a socialist, obviously. But is he a sexist? Consider this. According to an analysis by Breitbart, Sanders pays his female congressional staffers $3,500 more per year on average than Elizabeth Warren does. And yet, according to CNN, Elizabeth Warren is the real champion of women. Okay. So what's the effect of this debate? Well, Michael Moore isn't much of a filmmaker, for that matter, much of a person, but he knows an awful lot about the Democratic Party. Watch his analysis.
I've known Bernie since the 80s, so there's no way he said anything like the way it's been reported. They will mark this day, January 13th, as the day Donald Trump was reelected.
Ooh, so Trump's a beneficiary, says Michael Moore. And by the way, he may be onto something. Consider that 4 years ago, Democrats rigged the primary for Hillary Clinton. They did that despite the fact Hillary Clinton probably would have won anyway, but they just couldn't resist cheating. Because they did that, because they cheated, millions of Democratic voters emerged from the process embittered and enraged. Some of them stayed home last November. Others voted for Jill Steiner, Gary Johnson. Some moved over to Donald Trump. The net effect of this? Democrats lost. They suffered a shocking upset on Election Day. Could that happen again? Obviously it could. But no one in Washington knows that because no one in Washington ever learns anything.
There you go, man. He nailed so many different points right there. And, you know, I don't want to keep talking about this whole controversy because we have to focus on Joe Biden. He's the real adversary now to Bernie Sanders, especially in Iowa. Elizabeth Warren is done. There's no way in hell she's getting this nomination. Okay? And her desperation is manifested by this controversy. But the things that Tucker Carlson is saying, man, I mean, they're really on point. You know, he's even telling you that Elizabeth Warren and CNN probably set this whole thing up. Let's think of this rationally, right? You guys watching right now, and I know that stage has more microphones on it than a fucking recording studio, okay? So you think Elizabeth Warren doesn't know that? Of course she knows that. She knows damn well the whole world is watching. There are cameras and microphones everywhere. So not only did she pull that stunt, but she's also in bed with CNN because this whole story was leaked from the Warren team to the journalist that covers the Warren campaign on the trail. And that's how they got the scoop. And then she organizes it with CNN to leak the audio afterwards. You know, I read the article. CNN told us how they magically recovered the audio. Yeah, okay. The whole thing's a setup, man. But regardless, even if it wasn't a setup, she's still in the wrong just for, you know, accusing Bernie Sanders of being a liar. But the things that Tucker Carlson is saying, man, it's quite remarkable. You're never going to hear this on MSNBC or CNN, of course not, or from any left-wing corporate news outlet. You know, he's telling you that, yes, the DNC is scared of Bernie Sanders. They're terrified of him, and that's why they're doing this. That's the truth. Of course it is. Just like they did in 2016, which he reiterates. Okay? This is a known MO. This is the modus operandi of the DNC. This is how they do. Okay? So when they feel threatened by a candidate, and they very much are by Bernie Sanders because he represents a threat to the establishment as a whole, this is how they will do. They will screw him over and work with another candidate to do that. And Tucker Carlson, I mean, I can't believe that, you know, he's saying it. He's saying it. And even implicating the media. He's like, yeah, the mainstream media is in on this. Which, I mean, is quite ironic because Fox News aren't exactly innocent either, are they? So, I mean, don't be fooled. You know, Tucker Carlson and Fox News didn't air the segment because they care so deeply about doing the right thing and because they admire Bernie Sanders and his courage in the face of these lies and adversity. No, they're doing it because they want to dunk on the libs, right? They want to make fun of the Democrats and the DNC. That's why they're doing it. But that doesn't mean that what he's saying is not true, because it very much is. Matter of fact, it is the whole truth. Unfortunately, they are trying to do Bernie Sanders with this whole sexist smear because they're scared of him. And it's quite funny because even Tucker Carlson himself, he says that Bernie Sanders is maybe a socialist, but he's not a sexist, which is exactly what I told you in the previous video. I told you can ask any crooked politician, the most right-wing conservative in America, and they will all tell you that, yeah, we may not like Bernie Sanders, but he is honest. We know who he is. There's no mistake about if he has a private position or a public position. No, we know who he is, what he stands for. There's no mistake right there. There's no confusion. And even Tucker Carlson is telling you that. I mean, this shows you, it speaks volumes about how corrupt CNN and MSNBC are, and the New York Times and all these left-wing outlets. I mean, the right-wing ones are as well. But look at how the left-wing media is treating its own candidates, right? The most lefty of left candidates at the moment. I mean, in American terms. Elsewhere, Bernie Sanders is more of a centerish figure. But since we're talking about American politics, I guess we have to call him a lefty. So you see the issue here. You see the issue here, what they're trying to do to Bernie Sanders. And even Tucker Carlson said it. It's very possible that Donald Trump could win again. Because a lot of voters were disenfranchised last time. They were disgusted by the DNC's behavior, by how they cheated Bernie Sanders out of the nomination to prop Hillary Clinton up. Like Virginia, I don't know, it was like 52, 51 counties. Bernie Sanders won every single one. And the superdelegates still gave that state's votes to Hillary Clinton. I mean, in what capacity is that democratic at all? None. None whatsoever. So what he's saying is what I've been saying, what all the other progressive channels are saying, is that it's very, very possible that Donald Trump could win another 4 years because of the DNC's shenanigans, because they're trying to screw over the only progressive in the race. Okay? What can I say, man? And, you know, those clips where he's showing you all these pundits on CNN, I mean, what the hell were they even saying? They're just trying to fill the air with words. They're like, oh, Elizabeth Warren, she went over there and she gave him a piece of her mind. Yeah, that still doesn't mean that Bernie Sanders did that or that he's a sexist. You fucking dingus. It doesn't mean anything. It's still orchestrated. It's still an act. Again, I cannot comprehend this. This so-called event, this meeting between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren took place in December 2018. That's over a year ago. Why is she bringing it up all of a sudden and all of a sudden being cold to Bernie Sanders when the entire time there was nothing? It's because the primaries are about to start. So it magically leaked and found its way into the mainstream media, and CNN are playing ball to help Elizabeth Warren because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how they see it. They want to screw over Bernie Sanders, so they're going to get in bed with Elizabeth Warren to do that. It's not beyond the realm of imagination to think that Elizabeth Warren's entire campaign has been orchestrated to sabotage Bernie Sanders. Of course not. I mean, just look at all her policy positions. There are still people right now who have been duped into thinking that she actually supports Medicare for all, which she doesn't. She writes it on her website, but then on the campaign trail, she says something completely different and offer herself as a somewhat plausible progressive alternative to Bernie Sanders, even though she's not. She just talks the talk. So, you know, it's quite astounding when Fox News or Tucker Carlson, you know, once in a blue moon, actually say something correct, because most of the time it's quite bad. But you do find little nuggets like this from time to time where he just nails it. He knocks that out of the park, and you're just sitting there wondering why the hell this isn't the case on every network all the time. Some real talk. Why can't we have that? Well, apparently we can't. That's why people come to this show. That's why people come to YouTube for their news, because that stuff is once in a blue moon. But here we're speaking real stuff on the daily. You won't ever hear that kind of stuff on CNN and MSNBC. You know, I feel like you would get more truth about the shenanigans of the DNC on Fox News because they're trying to make fun of the left. And inadvertently, they speak the truth sometimes. You understand? Coincidentally. But on the left, on MSNBC, on CNN, I mean, networks that are so-called left, they're not really, are they? You're never going to hear them self-criticize or criticize the DNC. You know why? Because they are an arm of the Democratic establishment. They are a propaganda tool to brainwash people and sell them whatever establishment candidate or what the establishment agenda of the day is. That's their job. So there you go. Like I said, I think Bernie Sanders is going to do fine. He's recovering from this, and Elizabeth Warren shot herself in the foot. That's all I can say.